Hello, BookTube. I have some neat things to talk about in this little installment of Last Week in BookTube. First, let's see if we can get a shot of the babies. They're down on the blanket. Ooh, here we go. Malin's awake. It was the usual mix of variety. I thought I'd run down a few things that I really liked, just in case you didn't see them. I highly recommend them, and I'll try to remember to leave links down below. Max at WellDoneBooks. In order, we're going to start off with the usual way of tags that I was not tagged in. Max at WellDoneBooks did the try a chapter tag. He did a really good job of it. I'm glad that my original suspicions that his channel was that maybe he was losing heart proved to be completely wrong. If anything, he's had a huge bounce in energy. His channel's just wonderful to watch all over again. And MegaManChiefFan. He's a newish channel. I'm not sure all of you have seen him. I'll leave a link down below. He did the rapid fire book tag. Neither one of them saw fit to tag me. But of course, Max has a huge following. And MegaManChiefFan does not yet. I love his channel. I have the strong suspicion that that his zoo's monkey house is not open to the public, if you know what I mean. But maybe that just means we should all subscribe to him to keep an eye on him. Irish Reader did a great bookshelf tour. One of those things that a bookshelf tour is a kind of thing that's popular here on BookTube that I'm slowly inching my way towards trying myself. Because if I can hold the camera and lift it up and look at the dogs and then put it back without disaster happening, then maybe I can do a bookshelf tour. Next week I'm going to try it for just one shelf of one bookcase and see if it works. Then there were a batch of reviews that I wanted to make sure I told you about. Kate Howe reviewed A Suitable Boy. Did a really good job of it. It's also a book I highly recommend if you're in the mood for a 1,000-pager that won't let you down. Ben Sanders did a fine breakdown of the Deathnote series, the manga graphic novel series, in which a feckless boy gains the power to kill people at will. Conjure that for a minute. The Bookchemist talked about 0K by Don DeLillo, which is a book that I reviewed for the Christian Science Monitor and really liked, was very impressed with it, and also slightly frustrated by a lot of the other mainstream reviews of the book, so I'm glad that it has fans. A Scientist Reads talked about Naomi Novik's great Temeraire books, in which the armed forces use dragons. I love the series. I'm so sorry that it's ending. I've loved it from the beginning, and her discussion of it was really good. The Sufficient Seven reviewed Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and did a really good job. But they did two videos, and I've noticed all week long, I've seen, and in the past also, I've seen double videos of books by people on their channels where they will do a spoiler-free review and a spoiler-filled review of the same book. And I gotta say, as much as I loved their video, I don't like that practice at all. A skilled book review. People have been reviewing books for 400 years in the popular press. The idea of doing two reviews of the same book, one with spoilers and one without, has never crossed the mind of any good book reviewer. There are literally 80,000 ways to do a great book review without it even being an issue. And the more people go out of their way to do a spoiler review and a non-spoiler review, the more they give credence to the very idea of spoilers for books. No. As with any book, at any time, you of course don't want to give away major plot points that might spoil the reading experience for the reader. Of course, it's not the book reviewer's job to spoil the reading experience for everyone who comes after him. Past that, no. A book review is a discussion that you do of a book with an audience you don't know, that you assume is mostly composed of people who have not read the book. That's the audience for a book review. The audience for a spoiler-filled discussion of a book is a friend of yours that you know has read the book. Those are two different audiences. You can't make them the same thing by doing two different kinds of reviews, nor should you. Anyway, they did that. They're well worth watching anyway. I of course couldn't stand Red Queen. Oh my god. And then there were the sort of featurey things that I wanted to mention to you. Britta, at her channel, I'll leave the link down below, started a new series called Booksweekly, in which she looks back at her life in books in the previous week. I think it's a great idea. I hope she sticks with it. Bookseller Ravings did a 5-step reading slump recovery plan. Now, I must say, his steps seem reasonable to me. I have never experienced a reading slump. I don't understand them at all. But if you have, I suppose his plan will work. It certainly seems like it will be. And once again, it seems like someone, like like with so many of his videos, it seems like the kind of thing that could only really come from someone who's been working with the book buying public for a long time. I love that about his channel. And Reading with Jack did a really interesting video called My BookTube Identity. Seemed to me to be of a piece ideologically with a couple of videos that I mentioned in a previous segment of this series, of booktubers suddenly having midlife crises and going on camera to say, I'm having this issue or that issue, but I love it here. I love what BookTube has been for me. I'm not abandoning BookTube. I guess it's just the pessimistic Irish bog trotter in me that hears something like that and immediately thinks the worst. Thinks, oh my God, well, he's saying he loves it, he must hate it. That could just be me. But it's a fascinating little, almost a soliloquy that he does. I strongly advise you to go and see it. And then there was the fireworks of the week in BookTube. Of course, this being a giant conclave of bookworms, the dramatics don't get very dramatic. But even so, we'll take what we can get. Adrian and Dalton at Strip Cover Lit mentioned on one of their videos the flirtations that Kurt Vonnegut did with the outer garments of science fiction. Now, they are Vonnegut fans. I think most of BookTube are Vonnegut fans. I hate the man's work even more than I hated the man in person. All of it is pulled out of his nose as fast as he could type it. No thought, no planning, no internal structure, no coherence, no literary beauty, no thought, nothing. They are the closest thing that literature in English comes to just looking at somebody's doodles on paper. And yet, I suspect because they're very easy to read, his books are very popular. And Adrian and Dalton were discussing one of them and mentioned that it had some science fiction gimmicks in it. And Dalton said that pissed him off because science fiction gimmicks are no science fiction gimmicks. This is genuine literature. And even though on his own channel, Insomniac recently said that he's so busy, so swamped with other work and life commitments that he's not sure how many BookTube videos he's going to be able to make and how regularly, he was triggered. On his own channel, he had an icon of an atomic bomb exploding, and he came roaring back to defend science fiction against the implicit criticism in Dalton's comment that it can't be genuine literature. That, well, yes, he used those gimmicks in his book, but his book is still genuine literature. Oh, good. I wouldn't want to think it was science fiction or anything. And Insomniac rose to the defense of science fiction as literature and said his video was profanity laced. He called the guys at Strip Cover Lit flagrant monophysites. He called them, let's see here, spawns of Satan. But who of us watching their channel hasn't thought that? He called them epistemological Visigoths, which I think was going a little far. And I thought it was fascinating, not just because I love it when anybody takes issue with the guys at Strip Cover Lit. Why should I have all the fun? But also because it raises the issue of what you think of science fiction. I would love to talk about that. Because I think Insomniac, of course, is correct. I don't agree with the assumption on his part and the guy's part that Vonnegut ever wrote science fiction. He never wrote science fiction. He never cared about science fiction. Didn't interest him in the slightest. If instead of those lazy gimmicks, if there had been a whole bunch of different lazy gimmicks that didn't involve aliens or spaceships or whatever, he would have used those instead. Whatever was easiest for a lazy, talentless bum. But there have been genuine science fiction artists, and yet they suffer for the ghettoization of the subgenre that still exists. They do, and that's a little disturbing to me. It always has been disturbing to me. I've never really understood it. I remember reading The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin for the first time and thinking, well, okay, I've read all of the major literary novels of the year as well, and this was better than all of them. So why is this in a dimly lit back corner of the bookstore, and why is it snickered at when you bring it up in public? And of course, the reason is because it's science fiction, and everybody thinks the standard lit crit snob opinion is that science fiction can't be real fiction. And I want to know what the rest of you think of that. You see it even today, even in 2016, when 17 of the last 18 Hollywood movies to make more than $300 million on their opening weekend have been science fiction. Most of the best-selling novels have been science fiction. The genre has been doing very well, and yet the big book review sections usually won't do it. They usually ghettoize it. They'll have a guy or a woman who just is on the science fiction beat for them, and here you'll get 6 new novels that they do in one 1,200-word column, when they wouldn't dream of asking somebody to do 6 new literary novels in one 1,200-word column. They wouldn't dream of doing it. And that's just where it is. Unless the book gains a buzz elsewhere in the literary world, it will never cross over. The New York Times Book Review is a little bit better, but you can read it. When you read, if they do in their weekly pull-out book review section, if they do a big science fiction novel, you'll be able to read the condescension in the review. They're virtually never free of it. And for instance, my own, the Christian Science Monitor, they simply don't review science fiction, generally speaking. They simply don't review genre fiction, usually. I will occasionally get away with reviewing a murder mystery now and then, but usually when the call is made, it's assumed that it has a built-in audience of its own, and that audience, A, doesn't read the Monitor, and B, has plenty of critical attention elsewhere, no matter how good the book is. And the same thing with the Washington Post. It's still a prevalent attitude, and I wonder if you encounter it among people that you know, especially if you're a reader of science fiction. So feel free to talk about it either in my comments field or in Indie Insomniac's. Any encouragement we can give him to stick around on BookTube. And that was it. That was sort of a general overview of the stuff that I liked last week in BookTube. By all means, I keep meaning to do this in these videos. In my comments field, by all means, tell me what you watched and liked, stuff that I might have missed and might want to see. And other than that, I'll see you soon, BookTube. Thank you.